Growing up underground. For these young ones, the basement shelter of their orphanage in Ukraine's Poltava region is a second home. They shelter here when Russian attacks set off the air raid alarm.
There are children from 1 to 2 years old and children from 3 to 6 years old.
The youngest are only a few months old. Most of these children were taken in by social services, separated from families struggling with addiction or with financial problems caused by the war. They sleep here so their nights aren't disrupted by air raids. But their days often are.
If there is no air raid alert, every opportunity is used to keep the children outside. Anytime they're not sleeping, not eating, they're outside.
Giving at least one of these children a better life is what is driving Katya and Volodymir's decision to adopt.
This Lubomir is also interesting. He even looks a little like you.
Yes, I want one with blonde hair.
The couple is part of a growing trend. The number of Ukrainians signing up to adopt has doubled since the start of the war.
You're also considering Sebastian?
Yes, I am.
Katya and Volodymyr don't have an age or gender in mind. They just want a little sibling for their 11-year-old daughter, Sonia.
Look at his cheeks. He looks a lot like our Sonia. She was also chubby like that.
The couple have wanted to adopt for a long time, but their plans were derailed. Their hometown, Bucha, was occupied. It became known for Russian atrocities at the start of the war.
This is the church where civilians were buried in one grave, in a mass grave. Those who were shot and killed by Russians.
Now, they've learned to always be prepared.
There's a getaway suitcase here, under the bed. Here's another big one. And we always have gas in the car.
But they want to do more than live in fear. They want to love and support another child through this difficult time.
I see my daughter when the explosions start, and she gets scared. She can only sleep in the lap of someone comforting her, like her mom or her dad.
Kids need a feeling of safety, the protection parents give.
Unfortunately, the children in the orphanage don't have this.
Together with 10 other couples, Katya and Volodymyr are attending a mandatory week-long adoption training. Trainer Anastasia Podolska finds that this growing interest in adoption is an emotional reaction to the invasion. People want to adopt children orphaned by the war. But those kids are often adopted by other family members.
When they realize that there are no such children as the ones they fantasized about, then they give up on their decision. For me, it's a positive result when a family adopts a child, but it's also a good result when adults find the strength to tell themselves, we're not ready.
It's a challenge to take care of young children during a war. Back at the orphanage, caretakers try to make the air raids a game of hide and seek. Toys, cartoons, dancing, anything to take the children's minds off where they are. Still, a thrill of excitement when the air raid ends. It's a slow process, guiding toddlers and carrying infants back out. But it's a daily routine for these women. It's a relief to be back upstairs.
When the air raid is over, we shout, yes! And we go running into the playground.
Back in Bucha, Katya and Volodymyr are more than ready for this responsibility. Already, they have a plan for where the child will sleep.
This is the children's room, Sonia's bedroom. If it's a boy and he's older, we will probably give him this room.
As Katya talks about the future, she's interrupted by a message on her phone. The decision on whether they can adopt is waiting for them at the post office. Everything hinges on this. They'll only tell their daughter about the whole plan if the decision is positive. To their delight, it's a yes. The process can take months. But it could be life-changing for one of these children if they find a home and family with a couple like Katya and Volodymyr. And that is what these children are waiting for, even as the air raids go on.
We're going to speak now to Munir Mammadzade, UNICEF representative to Ukraine, joining me from Kyiv today. Good to have you on DW News. So what's your take on the increase in the number of families adopting children inside Ukraine by Ukrainians?
First, thank you for this subject and attention to the point. We haven't done as UNICEF any assessment of what might be incentives or reasons for such increase. But what we expect is that most likely it is part of the broader reform agenda, because since full-scale invasion, country has realized that we have spent way too much time and lost the opportunity to reform child care system in the country. And right now there are many efforts and initiatives to make sure that every Ukrainian child lives in a family environment. We also help government to introduce some digital tools to simplify the processes. But most important is one fundamental element that I have to highlight is that at the end of the day, we need to find a system where we search for parents, for children in need, rather than entertaining desires, let's put it that way, of prospective parents when they want just to adopt children of certain color of eye or hair, etc. So
Right.
This is key because we're talking about best interest of every child. But of course, war has also impact on the number of children. There are around 27,000 children in institutions still, and according to our information, around 64,000 children without parental care, but
Right.
who are placed in family care.
Well, tell us more about that, how you actually, do you speak to the Ukrainian government? Because they recently just approved its strategy titled Ensuring the Right of Every Child to Grow Up in a Family Environment. Tell us more about that.
Thank you. This strategy, we call it Ukraine Better Care Reform Agenda, which is meeting international and European child welfare standards. We're very happy to accompany Ukrainian government in that process. So it was a very complex engagement that we had together with civil society and different line ministries. So the strategy is an outcome of the consultations, engagement at decentralized level. So it's focusing on strengthening families and keep them together by investing in social services. So it's more with the emphasis around prevention. It is about expanding and improving family-based alternative cares and adoption as one of the solutions, but
Right.
also reintegrate children in institutions safely into their family care by transforming existing institutions. Because we need to remember that Ukraine has one of the biggest ratio of children in institutional care
Right.
across the region and in Europe.
Now, you were mentioning there, of course, the issue of the war has impacted very negatively the lives of children there in Ukraine. And there's also been a lot of talk about children who've been abducted from Ukraine since Russia's invasion. What's being done to help find and reunite those children?
Of course, the protection and well-being of every child in Ukraine is at stake, including their mental health. And we saw in the material you have prepared, we have estimated that 1.5 million children are at risk of depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and other conditions which are exacerbated by the war. But on the point that you have mentioned around children that are in occupied territories or Russian Federation, but also there is a large group of children that in EU member states or countries like Turkey and others. So our role is to help the government to build system at the community level and making sure that we accompany children, especially when it comes to children returning from occupied territories or Russian Federation. We are leading on reintegration services because we don't have access to occupied territories or Russian Federation to facilitate the return as such.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Munir Mammadzade, UNICEF representative to Ukraine. Thanks for joining us today on DW News.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.